Next, may I introduce Ms. Vera Fullaway, a physician and paramedics with a career in injury prevention education that spans over 35 years. She has led the state of Colorado CPS program as a technical training coordinator for over 12 years and served on the National Child Passenger Safety Board. Ms. Fullaway sits on the board of directors for Safety Belt USA and is the vice chair of the Manufacturing Alliance for Child Passenger Safety. Ms. Fullaway, please.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I would like to clarify, though, I'm not a physician. I think what she meant to say was a physics person. I'm going to pick it up right from where Elise left off, but before I do pick it up from where Elise left off, I just want to tell you, I don't usually pat myself on the back, but I was her original instructor, and I'm very proud to say that I was Linda and Elise's mentor to become an instructor. So you now have 2 instructors in the state, and I did good. And as I look around, I see several of the technicians that were in the first course and in the second course, and I'm so very pleased to see that you're all involved. That was just a personal note from me, okay? So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the power of community support in the school transportation safety arena, not just in the business, but also in the arena as parents, as uncles, as aunties, and whatever connection you have to the child. Okay, motor vehicle crashes can happen at any time. They can happen any place, and they are typically not something that we are looking forward to. The majority of motor vehicle crashes worldwide statistically happen with around 5 kilometers of your home or 5 kilometers of where it is that you work, because this is in concentric circles where you hang out the most. Statistically, these happen at any time of the day, so there's not one time a day that it happens more than the other. Where I come from, it typically happens when it's snowing. Am I close? Okay. Motor vehicles are designed to crash. Motor vehicles are actually not designed to get you just from point A to point B. They are designed to crash. Each and every engineer that is on the road is expectant that each and every car on the road is going to be able to prevent injuries by managing the energies that are created during the crash. There is an enormous crush zone on the front, which is the first line of energy management and defense that human body has on the inside. Next. On the inside of the motor vehicle, everything is going to move very quickly toward the point of origin of that crash, so in the same direction as the crash came from. Everything moves toward the crash at the same velocity until it is stopped by another force. In the case of a human body, when the human body is traveling at 20 kilometers per hour, the car is traveling at 20 kilometers per hour. When the car is involved in a crash, the human body continues to go at 20 kilometers an hour until it collides with something. If it collides with the windshield, the outcome is not going to be so pleasant. If it collides with the seatbelt, the outcome is not only survivable, but oftentimes not even damaging. In the case of unrestrained children, children will fly into the direction that the crash was from, and they will stop when they make contact with the first solid object, whether it's another child, an adult, another head, or a windshield, or the inside of that school bus or that motor vehicle. Child restraints are designed to work with passenger class motor vehicles. Passenger class motor vehicles in all countries are roughly about 453 to 3,600 kilograms. So the larger vehicles, such as school buses, actually perform a little bit differently. School buses in the United States are designed specifically to withstand the crash, specifically to be a very large mass. I'm not here to talk to you about US school buses, but there's been so much mention of them today, I thought I'd expand a little bit. There are 4 different kinds of school buses. There's a Type A, Type B, Type C, and Type D school bus, and they range in weight from 2,700 pounds kilograms to 15,000 kilograms. The gross vehicle weight of these buses makes them a large mass, which makes the energies of the crash force dissipate differently than it does in a smaller motor vehicle. You'll notice that on the front of the school bus, it does have a crush zone. On the inside of the school bus, there's very little crush zone because there are a lot of girders around the side of the school bus. They are built in so that they will be strong. But on the inside of the school bus, our school buses are designed to work a little bit differently than yours. We work on a theory that's called compartmentalization. It's like putting a whole bunch of little fragile eggs into little fragile cubbies in an egg crate. You'll notice that in the back, those children are not seat belted. Those children are taking advantage of the compartmentalization theory. The compartmentalization allows for them to stay within their own little compartment during a frontal collision. Their bodies collide with the upper torso up against the vehicle seat back that is designed to fold forward. It is very heavily regulated to make sure that there's a certain amount of compressibility and a certain amount of flexions to be able to absorb the energies of that crash and not transfer it onto the child. In the front, you notice that we have children, in that front row, we have children that have a lap-only seatbelt. Those children are not taking advantage of the compartmentalization because the seatbelt is keeping their hips back. It is allowing their torsos to fold forward and hit with their heads up against the school bus seat back. When they hit with their head, there's a hyperflexion that happens in their cervical spine. There's an increased amount of injury potential for the brain, and it is not taking advantage of the energy absorption that is able to be provided by that entire seat back folding forward. The lap portion of the belt doesn't necessarily fit correctly. Those of you that saw my earlier presentation today, if you could reflect back, please. Or is that the next slide? Oh, no, it's not. Okay, if you could reflect back, please, that lap portion of the seat belt needs to be underneath the hip bone. That hip bone curvature is known as the iliac crest. If that lap belt is not underneath the hip bone, then it has nothing to catch on and it intrudes into the abdomen. When the lap belt intrudes into the abdominal area, it can cause an injury as minor as tear in the abdominal wall from one end to the other, or something quite as serious as a tear in the spinal column, including tearing in all of the organs that it comes in contact with. The reason that happens is because that iliac crest is way too small, and most typically the seatbelt itself will cover the entire iliac crest of the child. In Singapore, your buses are different. In Singapore, you are using a minibus. Can you run that back so that the whole video runs? A very quick split second when the crash is happening, but you'll notice how far up off the ground the wheels are. This isn't necessarily your van. This is just a van that was crash tested in a laboratory. All vans will react in a very similar manner. They have a lot of weight in the back as compared to a smaller motor vehicle. They have a much smaller crush zone, so there's a lot more movement. We call that X, Y, and Z movement, meaning front to back, side to side, and up and down. So when we're measuring the crash forces that are exerted onto the child, they are absolutely enormous. On the inside of this van, this is the Toyota minibus that you use here. On the inside of it, you'll notice the people that are wearing their lap and shoulder belts remain in their seating positions. They are relatively, if at all, harmed or relatively unharmed. But the two crash test dummies that are left unseatbelted are the ones that will potentially cause injuries to absolutely everybody else. These are adult crash test dummies. They are the 50th percentile male crash test dummy, which is relatively representative of the 50th percentile Southeast Asia person also. I did not have the opportunity to bring a video that showed children, but the children's bodies would react very much the same way. The only thing is that they're smaller and they will bounce higher They're tinier, they don't have the mass, but they will go at a very similar velocity in proportion to their bodies. So if you can think about the difference in an adult's reaction in a situation like this, it would be like putting a tennis ball inside of a tin can. If you think about a child, think about putting a ping pong ball into that same can. They will go fast and they will bounce quickly, and the fatality rate is going to be, or fatality potential is going to be much higher. We go forward. In the unlikely event, as I thought, of a rollover, what I learned today is it's not that unlikely. If you think about that bus rolling over, think about the impact. And think about what those little children's bodies are going to be doing if they're not restrained. I know that keeping children restrained in a school bus is very difficult because of behavioral issues. I understand that it's very difficult for the aunties or whoever is monitoring those children's behavior. I understand that that's very, very difficult because I see it all over the world, not just here in Singapore. But the behavior of Asian children can be molded greatly by community support. And community support means that we need to teach absolutely everyone from a very, very young age and make it into the norm. And we need to keep repeating that message consistently going forward. So child passenger safety technicians are not just a possibility in your communities, but they are existent. I am so very proud to have introduced Elise and Linda as the instructors and many of our technicians that we have trained so far. Singapore has been fortunate enough to have the opportunity to have 3 courses so far, and we'll have an additional 2 courses coming up in the near future. I believe that the first one will be next week. I strongly encourage absolutely everyone to be a participant in this course. Very strongly urge everyone from a parent all the way through a safety professional, because everyone has a role. So what technicians do are they come together from around the community. Each of these people that you see has a different profession. Each of these people has a different role in life. Not all people who become child passenger safety technicians work in an environment where this is related to their field. We have many that become child passenger safety technicians because something sparked, something inside of them that says, I want to protect children, one seatbelt and child seat at a time. I want to save lives by being able to disseminate the correct information. What technicians do is learn in a classroom. The classroom setting is typically 4 to 5 days long. Elise has managed to whittle it down to about 3.5 or 4 days, which is very effective. I know you're thinking, what the heck am I gonna learn in 4 days? It's just a silly little baby seat, for crying out loud. But I've gotta tell you, talk to any of our technicians, and by the time day 1 is over, they were bowled over and cross-eyed with all of the new terminology, some of which was shared today here with you. We literally taught them a whole new language and a whole new outlook on injury prevention in child restraints. So inside of the classroom they learn, they go outside and they practice. When they learn inside the classroom, they learn to interpret all of the different needs that there are out there. The best car seat and the best child restraint for each and every child is number one that fits in the car. Number 2 is equally as important, that it must be appropriate for the child's age, child's weight, child's behavior, and the child's maturity. So it has to be appropriate for absolutely every aspect of that child's life. One car seat does not fit into every vehicle, and there's no one vehicle on the road that will accommodate every car seat. So what is taught during that period is the very basics of how to mix and match, and how to make the best of one side or the other, or one product or the other. The most important part that we can teach in all of our child passenger safety technicians, other than correct installation, is how to choose the correct restraint, but not how to choose it for that parent, but how to counsel that parent in choosing the right restraint for them. As Elise mentioned in that list of things that are necessary for a correct restraint, affordability is one of them. If the parent cannot understand how to use that child restraint, the parent will not be able to use it correctly, so that will not be the correct restraint. We need to make sure that the child fits well. We need to make sure that the child restraint is used correctly each and every time. The most important thing that those child passenger safety technicians do is educate. If you decide that 3 days or 4 days is too long for you, you can learn to be an advocate, but it's not going to give you the certified information or the certificate-worthy information that is required to actually proudly call yourself a technician. It's not an easy course, I have to tell you, but it is a worthwhile course, as I can attest to with our very first class here in Singapore. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I will be available for questions if you have any a little later.